Welcome to Cascade Podcast. Please like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps this channel. Okay, let's set the scene. Imagine the Cold War. It's a time when the whole world is just holding its breath, balancing precariously on the very edge of nuclear conflict. Now picture this, a silent hunter, a nuclear submarine just vanishing, completely without a trace, into the huge cold expanse of the Pacific Ocean. No distress call, no sign of wreckage, nothing, just gone. For one superpower, the Soviet Union, it was this devastating, completely inexplicable loss, a mystery that really gnawed at their strategic core. But for the other, the United States, well, it turned into an unprecedented opportunity, a whispered secret, buried 3 miles beneath the waves.
And what's truly remarkable, really fascinating about this single event is how it became so much more than just a tragedy. It wasn't merely, the loss of life and a crucial piece of military hardware. It acted as a catalyst. It basically ignited one of the most audacious, incredibly secretive, and technologically ambitious operations in history, period. This incident, it forced engineers, intelligence people to confront questions that pushed the very limits of what anyone thought was possible back then. They needed solutions that honestly seemed like science fiction at the time. It really redefined the boundaries of espionage and engineering.
So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this incredible saga. We'll be piecing together fragments from, declassified documents, gripping historical accounts, and engineering marvels that, frankly, still seem unbelievable. We're going to explore the mysterious disappearance of the Soviet K-129, then the secret American discovery that followed, and then the absolutely unbelievable covert mission to actually steal it back. From 3 miles beneath the waves, you'll hear about eccentric billionaire frontmen, technology that seems plucked straight from, a Bond film, and even a surprising, really profound moment of humanity that somehow cut right across the Cold War animosity itself.
Which really brings us to a crucial question, doesn't it? In a conflict like the Cold War, where every single piece of information was like gold, where knowledge meant power, maybe even survival, what ultimate price would a nation really be willing to pay? What immense risks would it take on to retrieve secrets buried in the deepest, most inaccessible parts of the abyss? I mean, how far would they genuinely go?
The vanishing act K-129 disappears into the deep.
Okay, to really get the gravity of this disappearance, we need to understand the time. We're talking the late 1960s. These were some of the absolute tensest, most volatile years of the entire Cold War. The Cuban Missile Crisis, that terrifying standoff that brought the world this close to nuclear annihilation, that was still a fresh, chilling memory for everyone, leaders, ordinary people. And meanwhile, the Vietnam War was raging, escalating global tensions, fueling this intense ideological fight. So in this climate, this relentless arms race between the U.S. and the Soviet Union wasn't just happening on land or in the air. It plunged deep into the world's oceans.
Exactly. Submarines, especially those armed with nuclear missiles, they weren't just ships. They were these silent, invisible nuclear deterrents, constantly on patrol, playing this deadly game of hide-and-seek beneath the waves. They represented that chilling assurance of mutual assured destruction. That grim but strangely stable guarantee that any first nuclear strike would be met with total devastation in return. No winners possible.
Right. So their very unseen presence was this fragile balance of power. And any disruption to that balance, any unexplained silence from one of these underwater giants was immediately cause for extreme global alarm.
It's absolutely crucial to grasp the strategic weight here. These submarines, they weren't just vessels. They were the embodiment of strategic power projection. Their constant undetected patrols were this critical, almost sacred part of the Cold War's terrifying stability. They were the second strike platforms, meaning even if your land-based missiles got wiped out in a surprise attack, you could still launch a devastating nuclear response from the sea.
So losing one wasn't just losing a ship and crew?
Not at all. It was a potentially destabilizing event, a gaping hole in that intricate, terrifying balance. It immediately raised fears that could easily tip those fragile scales and maybe provoke something much wider, much worse. That intelligence gap, just not knowing what happened to such a critical asset, that was strategically terrifying for Moscow.
So it's into this world, this high-stakes brinkmanship, that the Soviet submarine K-129 quietly slips out of its base. This is in Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, way out in the Soviet Far East, early 1968. And this wasn't just any sud. It was a Gulf II class diesel-electric ballistic missile submarine. Key difference there from the nuclear-powered ones.
Right, diesel-electric, meaning it had limits. It couldn't stay submerged indefinitely like the nuclear boats. It had to surface or snorkel more often to recharge batteries, a vulnerability.
And on this specific patrol, K-129 was carrying 3 R-21 submarine-launched ballistic missiles, FUBMs. These weren't small weapons. They were massive, single-warhead missiles capable of hitting targets thousands of miles away, turning cities into ash.
The mission was officially called Routine, a standard deterrent patrol out in the North Pacific, staying within its assigned area. But let's be clear, there's nothing truly routine about carrying that kind of destructive power silently beneath the waves. The boat, its crew of 98 experienced men, they were a significant piece on that Cold War chessboard, holding unimaginable power.
And then, on March 8th, 1968, something went terribly, irrevocably wrong. While it was out there deep in the Pacific, communications with K-129 just stopped. Dead silence. The submarine failed to send its scheduled reports. Those crucial check-ins confirming its status and location to Moscow.
The Soviet Navy's first reaction was likely, professional concern mixed with maybe some hope at equipment failure, a radio problem. But if hours turned into days and then a whole week went by with absolutely no word, that hope evaporated fast. It turned to alarm, then outright strategic panic. This wasn't a temporary glitch. This was the terrifying silence of a missing nuclear behemoth.
What happened next was this massive, frantic search operation, an all-out scramble by the Soviet Navy. Dozens of Soviet ships, aircraft surface vessels, patrol planes, even other submarines deployed immediately. They scoured huge areas of the Pacific, retracing K-129's expected route, sweeping vast sectors where it should have been. They searched for weeks, sometimes in terrible weather, but found absolutely nothing. Zero. No debris, no oil slick, no distress beacon, nothing. It was as if the submarine and its 98 men, plus their nuclear cargo, had just been swallowed whole by the sea, vanished into the abyss. Moscow had a chilling, unsolvable mystery on its hands.
The loss was absolutely devastating for the Soviets, a crushing blow on multiple levels. Beyond the huge human cost, 98 men gone, families left behind, a national tragedy orgy, the strategic implications were profound. A nuclear-armed submarine, a key part of their deterrent, vanished without a clue. This wasn't just a missing ship. It was a critical intelligence vulnerability. Moscow feared, and quite rightly, that if the Americans found the wreck, they could learn vital secrets.
Secrets about their missile technology, right, and submarine design.
Exactly. The R-21 missiles, their warhead designs, the cryptographic systems on board, maybe even details about how they operated. That kind of intelligence, revealing the capabilities and weaknesses of their most advanced weapons, it could have dangerously tipped the strategic balance. It would have been an unparalleled intelligence coup for the U.S., a potential game changer.
But despite all their desperate efforts, which apparently cost them a lot, maybe even another ship lost during the search, the Soviet Navy completely failed to find the wreckage. Eventually, with no leads, no hope, and probably immense pressure, the search was officially called off. The conclusion offered basically no explanation. K-129 presumed lost with all hands, cause unknown, final resting place a mystery. For Moscow, it remained a total terrifying enigma, a ghost ship, a strategic wound they couldn't close.
The silent listener and the blueprint for the impossible.
But here's the twist. While the Soviets were completely in the dark, struggling with this inexplicable loss, the Americans, totally unbeknownst to them, had a secret weapon. Not an eye, exactly, but an extraordinary ear beneath the waves. This was the sound surveillance system, better known as SOSUS. You have to picture this vast, hidden network of incredibly sensitive undersea microphones, hydrophones placed strategically across the world's oceans, especially the North Pacific and Atlantic.
And these weren't simple microphones. They were highly sophisticated listening devices woven into this complex web, capable of detecting even the faintest sounds in the deep, noisy ocean. They were literally listening to the heartbeat of the Cold War.
So this network, SOSUS, what was its main job?
Its purpose was singular, precise, and absolutely critical. Listen for the unique acoustic signatures of Soviet submarines. Every Soviet subclass, even individual boats sometimes, had a distinct sound profile, like a fingerprint, from its engines, propellers, machinery, even electrical hums. SOSUS was designed to track their every move, chart their routes, identify their types, understand their patterns. It gave the U.S. Navy this unparalleled, invisible intelligence advantage, an early warning system against any threat. A constant silent watchman.
And then came the moment that changed everything. March 8th, 1968. The very day K-129 vanished, SOSUS picked up something unmistakable. Analysts describe it as the unmistakable sound of a distant undersea explosion in the Pacific.
This wasn't just some faint noise. It was a clear, distinct, powerful acoustic event. It screamed catastrophe.
Right. So the analysts, these guys often working in deep bunkers, they jumped on it. They painstakingly studied the recordings, used multiple hydrophone arrays, complex math to triangulate the source with remarkable precision. And what they pinpointed was astonishingly exact. The explosion came from the very waters where K-129 had last reported its position, where its patrol had ceased.
Bingo. For the U.S. Navy and intelligence agencies, it was confirmation. A Soviet sub had gone down.
Yeah.
And unlike the Soviets, the Americans now had a pretty good idea where it was resting.
So following this critical acoustic clue, in April 1968, the U.S. Navy quickly sent specialized reconnaissance assets to the area. This included the deep ocean research vessel USS Halibut, which was equipped for this kind of work. And what they found after weeks of really painstaking searching across this vast, deep part of the Pacific, it was staggering, almost beyond belief, more than 16,500 feet down. That's over 5,000 meters, roughly 3 miles below the surface, resting on the abyssal plain. There it was, the shattered hull of K-129.
Let's just pause on that depth. 16,500 feet. The pressure down there is absolutely crushing, over 7,500 pounds per square inch, enough to crumple steel like tinfoil, to instantly implode any normal submarine. Very few manned vessels had ever gone that deep, let alone operated there. The technology to even see something at that depth, let alone work there, was in its absolute infancy. This discovery itself was a huge technological feat.
So finding the wreck wasn't just finding a wreck, was it?
Oh, absolutely not. This was truly a once-in-a-lifetime, unprecedented intelligence opportunity. For the U.S. Navy, for the CIA, it was like finding a sunken treasure ship. But instead of gold, it promised secrets of unparalleled strategic value. It was a potential treasure trove. Intact nuclear missiles, perhaps. Invaluable cryptographic materials, code books, cipher machines, sensitive communications gear, advanced Soviet technology. The intelligence gains from recovering even part of that submarine could be immeasurable. It could reshape the Cold War. It was an almost unbelievable windfall.
Okay, let's really unpack this moment. Inside the CIA, in those clandestine, high-stakes meetings, the discovery of K-129 sparked this audacious idea. Some might have called it crazy. Instead of just leaving the submarine down there, this unreachable steel tomb, why not try to raise it? Just think about the challenges for a second. 3 miles deep, deeper than any salvage attempt ever, thousands of tons, crushing pressure, no existing technology for it.
It sounds utterly preposterous, right? Like something out of Jules Verne.
Exactly. So why even consider it? Why pour potentially billions into something that seemed impossible?
The answer lies in the sheer existential stakes of the Cold War itself. Every tiny sliver of intelligence, every single insight into Soviet capabilities, especially their nuclear tech, their codes, their sub-designs, could shift the balance of power, or, at the very least, help prevent a catastrophic miscalculation leading to nuclear war. The CIA felt they had no choice but to try. The potential intelligence payoff was just too huge, too critical to national security to ignore. No matter how insane the engineering hurdles seemed, it was a gamble driven by terrifying necessity.
And so, despite the overwhelming obstacles, despite the skepticism, the decision was made. Yes, let's try it. The CIA pulled together teams of the brightest minds, top engineers, naval architects, deep ocean specialists, specialized contractors. Their mission, though fraught with doubt, was clear. Could ship be designed and built, big enough, strong enough, and maybe most importantly, secretive enough to pull off the impossible, to snatch a nuclear sub from the deepest Pacific?
And the answer they came back with, after intense debate, radical innovation, some truly audacious thinking, was yes, a highly speculative but hopeful yes. But they knew it would demand not just immense resources, unprecedented commitment, but also absolute impenetrable secrecy. And a cover story. A cover story so elaborate, so convincing, it could fool the watchful Soviet Navy itself, all while operating in plain sight.
The billion-dollar deception Howard Hughes and the Glomar Explorer.
Now, here's a really remarkable part of the story. Ironically, and this was absolutely critical, the Soviets never realized the Americans had found K-129. Their own huge search failed, remember. They assumed the wreck was lost forever, swallowed by the ocean.
And this massive intelligence gap, this crucial Soviet blind spot, gave the CIA an extraordinary, completely unexpected advantage. It meant they could, theoretically, mount this incredibly complex recovery mission without tipping off Soviet surveillance. They could try to grab this prize without the immediate risk of a confrontation at sea.
But how on earth did they maintain that secrecy, considering the sheer scale of what they were about to attempt?
That's exactly where the need for absolute, flawless secrecy becomes paramount. If even a whisper had reached Moscow that the U.S. was trying to recover one of their nuclear subs, well, the political fallout would have been catastrophic. Think about it. Grave robbery on an international scale, nuclear theft, a blatant act of espionage. The world would have erupted. But beyond the public outcry, practically speaking, the Soviets would have immediately sent their own navy to intercept, challenge, maybe even try to salvage it themselves, leading to an incredibly dangerous standoff. The entire mission hinged on them remaining completely clueless, which, given the tech of the era and the size of the operation, was a gamble almost as audacious as the recovery itself.
So by 1969, this audacious concept, which would become known as Project Azorian, was taking shape deep inside the CIA. They envisioned this truly massive deep-sea ship, something totally unprecedented, equipped with a colossal claw-like capture device, codenamed Clementine. This giant claw had to be able to reach down an incredible 16,500 feet, 3 miles to grab the wreck.
But the ship itself was the real paradox. It needed to operate out in the open, sail the seas without raising suspicion, yet somehow completely hide its true, highly sensitive purpose, especially from the Soviets.
And this is where the story takes a truly wild, almost cinematic turn. Seems like something from a spy novel. To create this elaborate, believable cover, the CIA turned to a very unlikely partner, a figure already shrouded in myth and eccentricity. The reclusive billionaire Howard Hughes.
Yeah, Howard Hughes. By the late 60s, he was already a legend, right? Famous for his eccentricity, his vast wealth, his ventures in aviation, movies, engineering, often groundbreaking, sometimes just bizarre. He was, quite simply, the perfect frontman for something this big, this strange.
Why him specifically?
Because his reputation, his established reputation for funding bold, futuristic, sometimes totally outlandish projects, meant his involvement in a massive experimental deep-sea vessel wouldn't seem that weird. It wouldn't raise too many eyebrows publicly or with rival intelligence agencies.
So the cover story they cooked up.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Hughes's legendary reputation made it utterly plausible. His company, Global Marine Development, could announce publicly that they were building a ship for deep-sea mining, specifically to harvest manganese nodules from the abyssal ocean floor.
Manganese nodule.
Yeah, they're these potato-sized rocks, rich in valuable metals, nickel, cobalt, copper. A genuine scientific curiosity back then, a potential future industry. The whole idea of ocean mining was speculative, futuristic, exactly the kind of grand, maybe slightly eccentric, technically impressive project Hughes was known for chasing. Few would seriously question such a massive new, unconventional ship if the enigmatic Howard Hughes was bankrolling it. It was a perfect smokescreen.
And so, the grand deception was launched, at least publicly, under this plausible, elaborate cover of a private deep-sea mining venture. The Hughes Glomar Explorer was born. But this was no ordinary commercial ship. It was a billion-dollar spy ship, secretly funded entirely by the CIA. Its true, hidden mission: achieve the impossible. Raise a Soviet nuclear submarine from 3 miles down right under the nose of one of the world's most powerful navies. Construction started in the early 1970s, in Pennsylvania actually, Sun Shipbuilding. And the Hughes Glomar Explorer was a monster, 618 feet long, that's almost 2 football fields, weighed 36,000 tons. It looked like this bizarre hybrid, part oil rig, part massive cargo ship, designed for heavy lifting in extreme conditions.
Its most obvious feature was that massive derrick towering over the deck, like on an oil rig, but much stronger. Built to handle thousands of feet of enormous steel pipes that would lower Clementine, the claw, to the ocean floor. Everything visible about it screamed deep-sea operations, reinforcing the mining cover story perfectly. But the Glomar Explorer held an even bigger secret, one that truly defined its real purpose, hidden right there in plain sight. Beneath its hull was this enormous secret bay, ingeniously called the moon pool.
A massive feat of engineering itself, this huge open bottom chamber, about 180 feet long, 75 feet wide, designed to be flooded. This giant internal dock was specifically built to bring the submarine section inside the ship in total secrecy.
How did that work?
Imagine. The ship lifts the section from the seafloor, gently pulls it up into this internal cavern. Then massive retractable doors at the bottom would close, sealing it off like giant jaws. It basically turned the moon pool into a dry dock within the ship. Once sealed, they could pump the water out, allowing the recovered part of K-129 to be lifted and examined by scientists, intelligence analysts, completely hidden from view, from satellites, spy planes, passing ships, total operational security.
Wow, a clandestine womb for a sunken secret.
The engineering challenges in building the Glomar and Clementine were just staggering, pushing the absolute limits of what was possible then. Every single component, the hull, the hydraulics, had to withstand those crushing deep ocean pressures. Clementine itself, the giant claw, sometimes described as a mechanical spider, it had to grab the wreck precisely, without shattering the fragile hull, but be strong enough to lift tons through 3 miles of water. And the pipe string. Thousands and thousands of feet of heavy, specialized steel pipe, meticulously screwed together, joint by joint, going down and coming up. The slightest weakness, a bad weld, an unexpected current, a maneuvering error could buckle or snap the whole string, sending Clementine and its cargo tumbling back into the darkness. It was a triumph of ingenuity against merciless nature.
And all this groundbreaking engineering, this huge gamble, it came at an astronomical cost. By the time the Glomar Explorer was ready, the price tag was nearly $800 million.
Which, in today's money, we're talking over $4 billion, making it one of the most expensive covert operations in CIA history, a truly billion-dollar gamble.
Of course, keeping something this big secret was an incredible challenge in itself. The Soviets weren't stupid. They had spy networks. They watched American shipbuilding. A revolutionary vessel like the Glomar couldn't go totally unnoticed.
Exactly. So the cover story had to be absolutely airtight. It had to withstand intense scrutiny, deep suspicion from seasoned intelligence analysts.
And that's where Howard Hughes, his persona, was invaluable again. His image as this eccentric, visionary industrialist made the ocean mining story plausible.
Right. When news broke about his deep-sea venture, people marveled at the audacity, the vision, but didn't see anything inherently sinister. The manganese nodule story may be a bit far-fetched, but it fit Hughes. It provided a solid, believable narrative, hiding the truth in plain sight.
What about the secrecy measures?
Extreme. Almost paranoid, but necessary. Only a tiny handful of CIA officials knew the true purpose. Contractors building the ship, compartmentalized. They only knew what they needed for their specific job, never the full picture of Project Azorian. Public tours of the ship were carefully orchestrated. They emphasized the mining tech, showed off the derrick, but never ever revealed the hidden moon pool or Clementine's real capability. Every detail managed.
In the code names.
The covert operation itself was Project Azorian. The public-facing cover story, the mining venture, was Project Jennifer. Interestingly, Project Jennifer later got mistakenly applied to the whole recovery operation when details started leaking years later, added another layer of confusion. Still happens sometimes in historical accounts.
So as the Glomar Explorer got ready in 1973-1974, the stakes for the U.S. were just immense. CIA's hopes for intelligence gains were enormous, what some called the ultimate prize of the Cold War.
A successful recovery might deliver Soviet nuclear missiles, intact warheads, giving invaluable insight into their design, yield, safety mechanisms, arming procedures. Even more enticing, recovering cryptographic gear. Code books. That could let the U.S. read Soviet naval communications for years, an intelligence goldmine beyond measure, a huge strategic advantage.
Plus, technical details of the sub itself, construction, materials, acoustic signature, revealing strengths, weaknesses. Critical for the undersea arms race. It really was the holy grail of Cold War intelligence.
But the risks were equally, maybe even more profound, staggering if the Soviets found out while it was happening. Political fallout. Yeah. Catastrophic. Accusations of grave robbery, nuclear theft, piracy, global condemnation. Worse, it could instantly escalate tensions, trigger a military crisis, maybe even nuclear exchange. The whole mission was this dangerous tightrope walk, with global stability hanging in the balance.
So essentially, the CIA was betting billions of taxpayer dollars, its credibility, maybe even global stability, on Project Azorian succeeding. An epic gamble, all or nothing. Driven by that relentless need for an edge in a war where the stakes were, or everything. The weight of that decision is hard to even imagine.
The abyss's grasp, the retrieval attempt, and the catastrophic failure.
Okay, so it's 1974. After years of planning, secrecy, groundbreaking engineering, the Hughes Glomar Explorer is finally ready. Showtime. The crew is this unique mix. Professional sailors, brilliant engineers, and a small, discreet group of CIA officers and specialists, all sworn to absolute secrecy. Lives intertwined in this crazy venture.
Supplies loaded, systems tested, retested, the colossal Clementine capture vehicle secured inside the moon pool, ready for its impossible dive.
The target site, deep in the North Pacific, far from shipping lanes, fishing grounds to avoid unwanted attention, but still potentially within range of Soviet reconnaissance.
So, under that carefully crafted cover of ocean mining, the Glomar Explorer sails out, positions itself, and prepares to attempt what no one had ever done, raising a sub from 3 miles down. Despite all the prep, the simulations, nobody aboard could be 100% sure it would work. The pressure, the weight, the unknown condition of the wreck, Failure was a very real possibility.
Just getting the massive Glomar positioned exactly over the tiny wreck site was the first huge challenge. Remember, this is the mid-70s. No GPS, no precise satellite navigation like today.
They had to rely on meticulous Navy charts, a network of acoustic beacons planted on the seabed, and incredibly careful, continuous dynamic positioning, keeping this giant ship hovering perfectly still over one spot in a vast moving ocean. It took extraordinary skill, patience, understanding deep ocean currents, like threading a needle from a skyscraper in a hurricane. Almost.
Once they were positioned to feed in itself, the painstaking, agonizing task of lowering Clementine began.
Miles upon miles of heavy reinforced steel pipe, each section weighing tons, slowly, methodically screwed together, joint by joint, descending into the blackness. The ship's derrick worked with this slow, deliberate rhythm, taking not hours, but days of continuous, nerve-wracking effort.
It sounds as much like an endurance test for the crew as an engineering feat.
Absolutely. Constant vigilance. The slightest mistake could shatter everything.
The tension during this descent must have been unbelievable.
Engineers constantly monitored the strain on that incredibly long pipe string, watched for subtle shifts and deep currents that could push the claw off target, maintain the ship's stability against Pacific swells. Any miscalculation, any sudden shift, any weakness in a single pipe joint. Catastrophic failure. Buckle, snap, and Clementine tumbles into the darkness forever, taking billions of dollars and all hope with it. The whole mission literally hung by a 3-mile-long thread.
And then, after what must have felt like forever, contact. Clementine finally reached the bottom. Sonar confirmed it was near the wreck, guiding the operators in the control room.
You can imagine the silence on the ship, everyone holding their breath. Anticipation. Trepidation. The theoretical was now real. They were there, hovering over the lost Soviet sub.
Guiding Clementine's huge claw over the shattered hull. How did they even do that in total darkness?
It was like performing remote surgery 3 miles down, visibility 0. No light penetrates that deep. The operators, in a control room lit only by monitors, relied entirely on sophisticated remote sensors, advanced sonar readings, precisely calibrated hydraulics, meticulously maneuvering those giant, multi-ton arms into position around the fragile, broken submarine. A ballet of extreme precision and incredible tech control.
And then, the grasp.
When Clementine's steel fingers finally closed around the fractured hull of K-129, you can imagine the wave of relief, maybe even euphoria. Against all odds, against all skepticism, the wreck was in their grasp. Slowly, with agonizing care, the lift began. Each rotation of the derrick, each foot gained, each minute without incident. A victory against the abyss.
At first, the ascent seemed perfect, a testament to the planning, the engineering. The claw held the immense weight. The pipe string held firm. K-129 began its long, slow journey upward through the black water.
Crew glued to monitors, watching strain gauges, pipe integrity, ship position, knowing failure could happen at any second. Hope was high, adrenaline pumping.
But then, disaster. As the wreck continued its slow climb midway through the lift, a catastrophic structural failure.
Part of K-129, already weakened by the initial explosion and years under crushing pressure, just broke apart under the stress of the lift.
In a terrifying, gut-wrenching moment, 2/3 of the submarine tore free from Clementine's grasp.
With a seismic shudder felt through the ship, the larger, heavier sections plummeted uncontrollably back into the abyss, crashing violently onto the seafloor. Lost again. Maybe forever.
Wow. The mood on the Glomar must have just crashed.
Instantly. From triumph to absolute despair. Crushing disappointment. Years of planning, billions of dollars, countless hours, compromised in an instant. The most critical parts, including 2 of the 3 missile tubes, maybe the main prize, were gone. Back to the depths. A devastating blow.
But Clementine still held something, right? The mission wasn't a total loss.
Exactly. Amidst the despair, there was still a glimmer. Clementine still held a significant, though smaller, portion of the submarine securely in its jaws. With that remaining section, there was still hope. A faint, desperate hope of salvaging some valuable intelligence. Maybe enough to justify the extraordinary effort, the astronomical cost.
So, severely compromised, far from the original goal. But not entirely a failure. They still had something to show for their incredible gamble.
Uncovered secrets and a solemn burial.
Okay, so after all that drama, that partial success, partial failure, what did they actually get? What intelligence did they recover?
Well, that's the enduring mystery. The CIA, even today, has never fully disclosed exactly what was recovered from K-129. Official statements are very carefully worded, very general. Much of the operation, especially the intelligence yield, remains highly classified. Decades later, it fuels endless speculation.
But some things have leaked out, right? Through declassified reports, memoirs.
Fragments, yes.
Yeah.
Tantalizing glimpses. These sources strongly suggest the portion brought aboard the Glomar included at least 2 nuclear-tipped torpedoes.
Which would be valuable, right, for understanding warhead design.
Invaluable. Insight into Soviet warhead design, internal mechanisms, yield, safety features, huge. Also, significant parts of the submarine's hull were recovered, allowing detailed analysis of Soviet sub-engineering construction materials. And then there are the persistent, though unconfirmed, accounts claiming cryptographic materials were recovered. Code books, cipher machines.
But the CIA never confirmed that part.
Never officially. That remains shrouded in speculation, debated fiercely by intelligence historians. If true, it would have been a goldmine.
So the debate about whether the mission was a success continues.
No, absolutely. Fiercely. Skeptics argue the intelligence gained, while maybe useful, was modest compared to the huge cost and loss of the main prize, those missile tubes. Was the return on investment really worth it? But supporters counter that any insight into Soviet nuclear tech, sub-capabilities, or especially codes, was invaluable during the Cold War. Think about it. Even one intact Soviet warhead gives you critical details on safety, yield, arming, could revolutionize anti-sub warfare or missile defense.
And even losing the main parts. Just proving they could do this, pluck secrets from 3 miles down. That sent a message, didn't it?
Exactly. The demonstration of capability itself was powerful. A signal about American tech prowess few could ignore. Maybe the long-term deterrent effect or the boost to deep ocean engineering was part of the value too. It was proof of concept as much as intel gathering.
Amidst all this secrecy and debate, one thing is tragically certain: the human cost.
Undeniably, human remains were found inside the recovered wreckage. Several Soviet sailors from K-129's crew had gone down with the ship. Their bodies had been preserved almost perfectly for 6 years in the freezing, crushing depths. A silent, stark reminder of the tragedy.
And this leads to one of the most unexpected, genuinely moving moments of the whole story.
Yeah.
The burial at sea.
It's extraordinary. The CIA decided to give the Soviet dead a formal, respectful burial at sea. The Glomar crew, American sailors, CIA officers prepared a steel casket, draped it with the Soviet naval ensign, the flag of their enemy.
Yeah.
They held a poignant ceremony on deck. A chaplain recited prayers. The recovered Soviet sailors were honored with full military rights by the very adversaries who'd risked everything to steal their submarine. An astonishing act of respect, shared humanity, right in the middle of intense Cold War hostility.
How did that even come out?
The burial was filmed by the CIA, meticulously. But the footage was kept secret, classified for decades. When it was finally declassified and released in the 1990s after the Soviet Union fell, it stunned observers worldwide. The Cold War was defined by suspicion, hostility, distrust. Empathy often seemed absent. Yet here, on this spy ship in the middle of nowhere, was this moment of profound, unexpected humanity. American intelligence officers honoring lost Soviet sailors. It revealed a hidden layer of respect few imagined existed then, a shared understanding of the dangers of the sea, regardless of flag.
What was the Russian reaction when they finally saw the tape?
Understandably complex, deeply emotional. They expressed gratitude for the gesture, the respect shown to their fallen comrades, but for the families, bittersweet. Confirmation their loved ones were found and honored, yes, but also a painful reminder that most of the crew, still lay on the ocean floor. An unrecovered tomb, their final resting place, still unknown.
And throughout this whole audacious operation, Soviet ships were still out there, right? Patrolling the Pacific.
Yes. The CIA lived with that constant fear of detection, fully expecting any sign of salvage activity would bring instant, maybe violent, Soviet retaliation. The consequences could have been catastrophic.
Yet, remarkably, the cover story held.
To the Soviets, the Glomar Explorer was just what it claimed to be. An experimental deep-sea mining vessel, another weird Howard Hughes venture. Even when they occasionally monitored it from a distance, maybe noted its unusual design, its long stay in one area, it didn't trigger alarm bells leading to intervention. The visible mining operations, though maybe odd, seemed consistent enough. They never realized the truth.
So the Americans pulled off one of the boldest intelligence thefts of the Cold War, right under their noses without being caught red-handed.
Which raises another question. Why did Moscow stay silent even after fragments of the mission leaked to the press in 1975?
Good point. Rumors were out there.
It's possible, even probable, that both the U.S. and the Soviets deliberately chose to downplay it. to avoid a massive international scandal, further dangerous escalation. The U.S. might want to hide the huge costs, the partial success, the sheer audacity. While the Soviets would be deeply embarrassed to admit publicly that one of their nuclear subs was lost, found, and partly plundered by their rival, a profound humiliation. Sometimes, in the murky world of Cold War espionage, it was politically safer for both sides to just let certain uncomfortable secrets stay buried. Unspoken agreements in the shadows.
Echoes in the deep legacy and lingering questions.
So Project Azorian. Even today, it's still debated fiercely, isn't it? Success or failure?
Absolutely. Historians, intelligence experts, military strategists, they still argue about it. Was it a partial success, a triumph of engineering and espionage, or a billion-dollar failure, an overambitious gamble with questionable results? The answer really depends on your perspective, what criteria you use.
Those arguing partial success point to.
They emphasize achieving the impossible, demonstrating America's unparalleled engineering prowess, proving a revolutionary technological capability. And they argue that getting some valuable intelligence, especially if codes were involved, was worth the cost during such a dangerous time. The act itself was a monumental achievement.
And the failure argument.
Critics hit hard on the fact that 2/3 of the sub was lost, including 2 of the 3 missile tubes, arguably the main targets. They point to the astronomical cost over $4 billion today, saying it far outweighed the uncertain, often undisclosed intelligence yield. From this view, it was hugely expensive and fell significantly short of its main goals, a white elephant.
Project Azorian also left us something else, didn't it? A phrase we still hear today.
That's right, a lasting linguistic legacy. In 1975, rumors started leaking. Reporters at the Los Angeles Times got wind of this incredible story of the U.S. trying to raise a Soviet sub. When they formally asked the CIA for confirmation, the agency issued its now famous, carefully crafted reply: "We can neither confirm nor deny."
The Glomar response, named after the Hughes Glomar explorer.
Exactly. That phrase became instantly iconic. Set a precedent used ever since by U.S. government agencies for classified information. To this day, every time an official uses that exact phrase, they're echoing the ghost of the Glomar explorer, a direct linguistic descendant of Project Azorian, a reminder of this mission and government secrecy.
It's fascinating how a phrase becomes such a tool.
It's a masterstroke of bureaucratic language, really. It acknowledges the question without revealing anything, shuts down inquiry on classified matters without technically lying. The Glomar response is now embedded in legal and intelligence circles worldwide, a subtle, enduring legacy of this incredible mission. Shows how even denial can be a powerful tool in espionage and statecraft.
What about the missing wreckage, the 2/3 of K-129 that fell back down? What happened to it?
Another enduring, unsettling mystery. Some researchers speculate the Soviets might have mounted their own covert salvage mission later, tried to retrieve the remaining sections.
Any evidence of that?
If they did, they never admitted it. And no credible, verifiable evidence has ever surfaced. The Pacific is vast. The depth is extreme. A covert operation there would be incredibly hard to detect or prove.
And there's the possibility of nuclear warheads still down there.
That's the unsettling speculation. Warheads from those lost missile tubes, possibly still inside the wreckage, corroding silently on the seabed after decades. Do they pose an environmental danger? Are they still potential intelligence prizes for future explorers with even more advanced tech? Questions that linger in the crushing dark.
And the Glomar explorer itself, what became of it?
After its clandestine mission, its future was uncertain, the mining cover was dropped, the colossal ship sat mostly idle for years, a relic. Its true story known only to a few. Eventually, it was leased out for deep-sea drilling, oil exploration. Stripped of its specialized CIA gear, slowly faded into obscurity until declassifications brought its past back to light.
So more than half a century after K-129 sank, so much remains untold. We know nearly 100 Soviet sailors went down, lost in the depth. We know the CIA built this billion-dollar revolutionary vessel to try and steal it. We know part was raised, bodies recovered, given that solemn burial. And secrets may have been recovered, though the full extent is still debated. But the central, enduring questions for us, for you listening, they persist. Echoing from the deep. What exactly did the CIA recover from 3 miles down? Nuclear warheads, those code books, or just fragments of steel and sorrow, maybe limited strategic value? Why did the Soviets never expose the mission publicly, even after the leaks? Mutual silence, embarrassment. And what still lies down there, 3 miles below the Pacific? Nuclear weapons, Cold War secrets, or just resting wreckage slowly being reclaimed by the indifferent ocean?
Project Azorian really remains one of history's most daring covert operations. It's this astonishing blend of human ingenuity, maybe hubris too,
Part triumph, part tragedy, entirely shrouded in mystery. It shows us the extreme lengths nations will go to for an advantage, for even a perceived edge in that relentless geopolitical game, venturing into the darkest, most unreachable corners of our world. And as long as the most sensitive records stay classified, as long as the rest of K-129 lies undisturbed, the full, complete truth will likely stay hidden, a potent relic of an age when the Cold War reached into the deepest abyss.
Indeed, it really leaves you wondering, doesn't it? What other incredible feats of engineering and espionage are still lurking out there, untold, beneath the surface of history? Thank you for exploring this fascinating, truly suspenseful chapter with us.